Okay, Canada have beaten New Zealand in the first semi-final at the Women's Rugby World Cup, 34 points to 19. It was 24-7 at half-time. The first 60 minutes, Canada dominated this game. They won the game by half-time. They won the game by playing as a team. They won the game by being more disciplined. And they won the game because they wanted it more. They actually could see the desire there. You could see the togetherness there. This Black Ferns side, there is no doubt they're exceptionally talented. There is no doubt they have the skill set. And there is no doubt that players like Braxton, Sorensen, McGee are going to have fantastic careers for the next, potentially 20 years. Potentially. If she stays fit enough and committed enough and focused enough. No doubt. But they played like individuals. Defensively, they shot up out the line in ones and twos. Now, if you're going to blitz defence, you do it in fours and fives. You do it as a line going up to pressurise the passer and the receiver. They were doing it in ones and twos. And Peltier at scrum half for Canada has played potentially the best game I've seen a scrum half play in this tournament. Right, just New Zealand could not deal with how she played the game. And when she'd figured out after 8 minutes this is how they're defending, she's deservedly gets a try. They're shooting up, and then it's just, okay, give it a little dummy then. So one player's shot up, little dummy, in the gap, gone. That's pretty much how easy it was for Peltier. But at the same time, the communication between Peltier, her packer forwards, and then the outside backs was pretty brilliant as well. The support running lines were brilliant. Peltier's try, admittedly, they've got an advantage. It's a kick over the top. It's from Tessier. It's a great kick over the top. The Black Ferns defence is shooting up in a disorganised fashion, trying to problem solve as individuals, and there's space in behind. And they took advantage of it. Took 8 minutes. De Goody converts, and Peltier tonight probably deserved a couple of tries, to be honest. Now the Hogan Rochester try, that is a ridiculous spiral pass for that to create the overlap. Then the physicality just to knock players off. Hogan Rochester has a lot to do there. A lot of work to do there. It's not an easy try to score considering the miss pass that's got to be, 20, 30 metre pass. Spiral. That is a fantastic pass. But then you've got a blitz drift defence. But she just hands off Holmes like she's not even there. Literally just bumps her off like she's not even there, which is very surprising defensively there. Too high, poor technique. But at this point, Canada are having fun. They're actually having fun. You can see they're on top and they are running the Black Ferns. I've never seen a Black Ferns team this in a game where they were so just not there. Any New Zealand team just not there physically, not there with intensity, not there with focus. Just not seen it. The last time I saw a New Zealand team just not in a game of this magnitude was the 2003 World Cup semi-final in Australia, where the All Blacks were beaten by the Wallabies. That is what I would liken this to. They just were not there. They didn't turn up. The aggression wasn't there. The focus wasn't there. And when Simons gets her try in 24 minutes, you're thinking, hang on a second, this should be a lot closer. This should be a very close game, couple of points in it. These are two very closely matched sides. Look at the Olympics with the Sevens. Look at recent Test matches. This should be a couple of points, not 3 tries to nil after 24 minutes. New Zealand had just imploded mentally. They'd mentally just not been there. They'd barely had the ball, but they just were not there when they were making line breaks, which they did. They were doing it as individuals. The support players were not close enough, and they were getting isolated, and then they're getting pinged for holding on, or they're getting turned over and losing the breakdown. It was like a team of individuals. It looked like they'd never played together before, and they were relying on their individual skill to try and play. Now, they do get a try. Cunavale, they finally get down to 22. Their first entry into 22, they do get a try on 27 minutes. After Simmons' try, they do get a try, and Holmes converts it. And you're thinking, okay, finally, that we could see a swing of momentum, and Canada are going to have to defend a bit, surely. They're going to be on the back foot for the next 10 minutes. Not the case. It was back to as we were again, with Canada on the front foot. And the Goody's try, I mean, the line she runs is brilliant. And it looks like the play's breaking down. New Zealand look like they're probably going to contain this attack. And then the run on the ball, I mean, Peltier's pass is just perfect weight for a little pop pass, and De Goody just runs onto it like an outside centre would run onto a ball like that. It's an outside centre's run from a second row. And that's a brilliant try in 35 minutes. I think that's the moment where, the Black Ferns were beaten. I think that's the moment where they're done. Even though they do score 2 tries in the second half, I think that is the moment where the game's gone. Because to concede 4 tries and only score 1, they barely had the ball, to be honest. They did a lot of defending. We're talking over 150, I think it was about 100 to 150 tackles in that first half. Considering how many tackles they had to make against Africa, they did look tired. I will admit this, they looked very tired. And I think they were also missing Miller in the back row as well, who's been very influential and impactful for this team with some of her line breaks and turnovers. They were missing Miller in that back row. I think that was a very obvious miss. There were a handful of players that had good games, like Soros and McGee and Stacey Wacker. But as I say, if you were to rank them, the Canadian starting 15 against the New Zealand starting 15, I would say 10, 11, maybe 12 of the Canadians performed better individually, head-to-head, than their New Zealand counterparts. So it's half-time, it's 24-7. Tessier's try literally just straight away, straight out of the blocks on 43 minutes. Yeah, the game's gone. Now, New Zealand would have their little purple patch for a good 10, 15 minutes with 2 tries, but in reality, they're chasing the game. They're still making the same basic errors with handling, same defensive one-up blitz misreads. While they did pick up their intensity, I will say this, they did pick up their intensity and desperation. You could see they were playing with desperation rather than with a coherent plan and a coherent method to their attacks. This is desperate attacks. Now, Michaeli Tutu gets a try on 56 minutes, and Soros and McGee converted that. And then Soros and McGee's try, admittedly, that is a brilliant cross-field kick. They do have an advantage. It's a brilliant cross-field kick. And for a slim player, a player who's still growing into her frame, because she's still a teenager, for a player of such slight build, fantastic power, very underestimated. I think opposition players underestimate how powerful that and how good a core she's got, muscular core she's got. And look, she's had a brilliant World Cup. Some of her runs to get New Zealand up the field, there is no doubt. One of her counter-attack runs helps create Michaeli Tutu's try. And that's on 65 minutes, and you're thinking, okay, maybe Canada are starting to tire a little bit. Maybe their discipline's starting to go. It took until, I think it was 70 minutes for a line-out to go wrong. They only, until the last few minutes, they only had 2 penalties after 70 minutes go against them. I think it took a while for their first scrum failure. Like, their Canada's set play was ridiculous. So anytime they had a line out or they had a scrum, Canada are getting the ball back and they're having a phase of attack. Now, yeah, I think at this point, New Zealand have a little purple patch, put Canada on a bit of pressure. You can see Canada are starting to tire a little bit. They have to use the bench. But at the same time, New Zealand are not playing with, a game plan. They're playing desperate. They're relying on just emotional energy to try and get back into the game and individualistic skill. Now, yes, the 2 tries they scored are fantastic in the second half. As I say, there's no doubting the skill set and the ability these players have. But they weren't playing as a team. Now, De Goody's penalty, admittedly, they could have gone for another driving maul. Canada regained some composure. They'd lost a bit of focus in that second half, and you knew the Black Ferns were going to show some fight in the second half. The penalty, It's the right decision. They could have gone for another kick to the corner and gone for another driving maul because they were having some success there. They were drawing penalties from it. That's the end of the scoring. Now, the Black Ferns will continue to try, but I think the game was gone by half-time. And as I say, the only other time, apart from the 3 tests that we had before the last World Cup where the Black Ferns were demolished by England's Red Roses, and we know about the issues within that camp and the coaching issues and the culture, I've not seen a Black Ferns team play this badly in a World Cup. I've not seen a Black Ferns team, even while winning, have such poor discipline, because the penalty count's been ridiculous. And I've not seen a Black Ferns team be so clunky in attack at times and not even have a settled starting 15 or a favoured starting 15 and a more favoured bench. There's too much chopping and changing. And I have no doubt in the 3rd, 4th place playoff against whoever they play, they're going to chop and change some more. And on a head-to-head basis, each Canadian player stood up. They knew their role. When a Canadian player made a line break, there were support players there. The Black Ferns' defence, as I say, was trying to problem solve as individuals, and they were beaten by the better side. Canada, individual players forming a team. New Zealand, a team formed of individuals. And teamwork won the day. And I took a lot of criticisms, and I would call it more akin to abuse, after the quarter-final against South Africa. And I feel vindicated because I've been saying, even when New Zealand were winning comfortably in the pool stages, that they were making sloppy errors, and at times they let their intensity and discipline disappear in their focus. And they got found out by a much better team, a team that crowdfunded to get here, that doesn't have a kicking coach, and a union in Canada which has financial issues. There's a reason why the men's game in Canada is struggling and has been struggling for a decade and a half. This Canadian team, that crowdfunding, I think, has unified the team. I think there's a good teamwork. I think Canada could win the World Cup. I've been saying from the pool stages, Canada look the best team. They look, the best overall. Yes, I don't think this Canadian team's even played their best game yet. I think this Canadian team, they were sloppy in the second half. I think they can get better. I think there's room for improvement. That's how good I think this Canadian team is. This New Zealand side, maybe they just got a bit arrogant. Maybe they were a bit overconfident. Maybe they underestimated how, Canada has closed the gap and England have closed the gap. They've lost to Ireland. They've lost to France. They're not invincible anymore. There's no divine right to win every time. I think they forgot, occasionally you've got to lose to get better. I think they forgot the fundamentals of the game, and they were rightly beaten and fairly beaten. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comments section below, and I'll have some more content for you all very, very soon.